So this one was made with AI, and this one was also made with AI. What this can do is just really incredible. When I look at what AI can do, the first thing that comes to mind is, can I use this in my work to generate backgrounds in my style, or maybe a project for a client? I don't have time to do that, but what if I trained an AI on my work and then licensed it out to the client to create it themselves? That seems like a win-win. They get the work they want, it would be faster, it would be cheaper, I would be compensated without having to invest days or weeks of my time. So many possibilities, but how does AI do this? I think it's time for a dramatic oversimplification. The AI is trained on a giant data set of images, billions of images, and it uses those to learn what objects look like and different art styles, and then it outputs artwork based on the text you write into a prompt. In my years of working with a designer and dealing with image rights and font rights and branding rights and licensing rights, the issue was apparent. How did you all get the rights to 1 billion images? They didn't. That would be next to impossible. So they did what Silicon Valley does. They moved fast and broke things. And now we're seeing the inevitable outcome of that. Bring in the lawyers. There have been 2 lawsuits filed against AI companies this month. The first was by a group of artists, Sarah Anderson, Carla Ortiz, and Kelly McKernan. Their lawsuit is against Stability AI, Midjourney, and DeviantArt. A few days later, another lawsuit was filed by Getty Images as well, and they are a company that is certainly used to litigation. The core of the artist lawsuit is that they are looking for 3 things: credit for their work, consent, because all of these images were just inputted into the AI without any kind of permission, and 3, compensation. And they call these the 3 C's. There's a letter for their attorney online. I'll link that down below if you want to read it. What's interesting about their letter is that it is very much written in a way that is meant to be understood. A lot of times when you read about AI or watch a video about how AI works, it really gets into the weeds and it can get really confusing to the layman fast. And it seems like a lot of the criticism and pushback that I've seen online against this lawsuit revolves around that. The fact that it does try to put this technology into a context that is accessible. It takes umbrage with like the word collage, or specifically how this stores images or doesn't store images in the model. The Verge reached out to Stability AI about the lawsuit, and a spokesperson said, "The company takes these allegations seriously, but believe them to be a misunderstanding of generative AI and copyright law." So it does sound like the defense's route is going to be focused on how this lawsuit is describing AI specifically and how it works. But the precedent that this suit will set or start to set is going to be around the idea of fair use. What is fair use? Is it okay to scrape all of these images off the internet without the right holder's consent to be used as the foundation for a for-profit company and their products? Daniel Jervis, a law professor at Vanderbilt Law, says there are 2 factors to consider in fair use trials. What is the purpose or nature of the use, and what is the impact on the market? In other words, does the use case change the nature of the material in some way, usually described as transformative use? And does it threaten the livelihood of the original creator by competing with their works? Transformative can mean many things. If I review a movie here on YouTube, I may use clips from that movie in my review. But my review is not a replacement for that movie. It is a commentary on that movie. That is one kind of transformative work. This version of transformative work is more like an Andy Warhol painting. That is clearly based off a photograph, but it transforms it in a significant way. I think it's that first part that AI proponents are focused on, because it is hard to tell looking at a generated images what the source material was. Although the Getty lawsuit begs to differ. Now, the second part of Gervais's quote is where things get interesting and where I think most of the case is going to lie. Does it threaten the livelihood of the original creator by competing with their works? Now, this isn't just a purely economic argument. If you lose work because a product exists, does that count? No. I think Gervais has a much better example here. If you give AI 10 Stephen King novels and say, produce a Stephen King novel, then you're directly competing with Stephen King. Would that be fair use? Probably not. And this is where I think the case might actually have a real shot. Artist and YouTuber Sam Yang of Sam Does Art has a great video where he talks about his personal experience of dealing with the customers of products like Stability AI and Midjourney. He didn't like his name and his work being used as prompts in the AI art tools. He just didn't want his work being used this way. And the response from the community was to make AI models specifically built on his work and his work alone to make more art that looks like his work. And in this case, that describes the exact scenario that Gervais laid out with his Stephen King example. People are building products specifically to replace Sam for their own commercial gain. But does this hold more generally to say just using Midjourney to make anything you want? I don't know, and that's what the court case is going to decide. To me, it seems like what makes Midjourney special is that all of the artwork it produces looks professional, like crazy good. For example, I went in there and all I did was type in the word cat, the most generic thing I could think of. And while these illustrations have no soul, they are rendered beautifully. There's an understanding of lighting and contrast and balance. Even the composition of these images, while simple, is pretty good. I went to another site called HaveIBeenTrained.com, and that's where you can see if your work is part of the training models. And again, I typed in the word cat and the images that came up are incredibly random. More random than even a Google search. Bad photos, cartoons, some drawings that aren't terrible but are nowhere near the quality of what Midjourney gave me. I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled. I came across nothing that even came close. Even though those models are trained on billions of images, the output seems to be very heavily weighted towards the 0.0001% of images that are produced by the best working artists in the world. And to me, the layman who doesn't really understand what's happening in the big magic box, I would think that if all billion images were weighted equally, my cat picture would look more like the cat pictures in the training data. But it's definitely not. You can have a cheeseburger with the meat and the cheese and the lettuce. That's not special. It's just a cheeseburger. You need that special sauce or you're just another boring restaurant. That special sauce is only a small amount of what you're eating when you take a bite of that cheeseburger. But that is the thing that makes that cheeseburger so good. That is what your customers come to you for instead of the restaurant down the street. And it's pretty clear looking at Midjourney that the special sauce tastes like Greg Rutkowski. It's all those professional working artists who are posting to ArtStation. It feels like that is what makes this look good. If Stable Diffusion or Midjourney recreated something like this, nobody would use their products. We would not be talking about them right now. It would not be a useful professional tool. In short, they would not have gotten tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in investment and be valued in the billions. And their customers seem to understand that. Look at the toxic response to Sam wanting to be removed from the model. The 3 artists who have filed this lawsuit have been bullied and harassed online. Why? The lawsuit's website itself has spawned a line-by-line response that uses the word frivolous in the title. And while we can agree or disagree over whether this is fair use and whether there is an actual case here and what the future of the legality of AI is, I think we can all agree this is far from frivolous. And anytime an artist mentions wanting to be removed or a group of artists says, I'm not so sure about this, it sparks outrage amongst Stability and Midjourney's customers. When Stable Diffusion 2.0 launched, the AI community was not happy. They were worried that the changes that were made were limiting, like you cannot make celebrity or even use artist styles. Some people were even so upset they started their own Kickstarter to build their own version specifically so they could use artist names as prompts. CEO of Stability AI rushed to reassure their customers that no artists were deliberately removed from this model. If you take out the work of, say, the top working artists in the world, what happens to these models? It really doesn't seem like anybody who uses these things wants that to happen. There is now an opt-out process that will take your artwork out of the training data if you can find it. It puts the entire onus on the artist, and it is a far from user-friendly or easy process. There is a lot happening with these lawsuits. There is a lot here. I cut out a ton in this video. So much. I really truly feel that many of the issues that artists are raising are legitimate. And I've been genuinely surprised and at times revolted by the kind of toxicity and harassment that they faced when they say they don't really want to be part of it. And it makes me really sad to see people who I consider friends and people who I've never met, like Sam, but I respect, just go through what they're going through just for sharing their opinion, which seems like a pretty legitimate concern.